chat, the way that so to the attendees listening in, we will hear from Chris and then Philip and then Akeem. So they will sort of talk you through their view on apprenticeships, and then at the end there will be time for a sort of Q&A session. So at that point, if you start, I mean, I'll let you know when that starts, and ask you to start submitting questions in on the chat. And at that point, I'll kind of address your questions to the different panelists. So that's how it's going to run. Just one kind of very important thing for attendees. So for the afternoon session, the kind of virtual fair session, it is very important that you have the most up-to-date version of Zoom, because otherwise you won't be able to access the breakout rooms in the afternoon. So if you haven't got the most up-to-date version of Zoom, then during the kind of lunch break, please make sure you download that in order to access the session this afternoon. I'd just like to say hello to everyone who is attending, and it's very nice to have you with us on this rainy sort of Saturday morning in London. So my aim is basically, I think apprenticeships are a very interesting option, and I think they're particularly interesting for the kind of, I've seen for the students at our school who are kind of hands-on learners who just kind of like getting stuck in and learning on the job. And I don't think I've ever met, so I'm quite pleased that there's a growing number of apprentices from the GDSD family of schools. So every time I run one of these events, there's a larger group of ex-GDSD students to ask to come back and talk about their experiences. And I haven't yet met an apprentice who has a bad thing to say about what they've done. They're without fail incredibly enthusiastic about the apprenticeship pathway. So my aim for this event really is to kind of make sure that everyone who attends has a deeper understanding of what apprenticeships are about, and knows where to go to get kind of further information about the apprenticeship pathway, so that when it comes down to probably post A-level study, post A-level pathways, they do consider an apprenticeship as a genuine option. Because I worry that quite a lot of students go through A-level, and because they don't know very much about apprenticeships, they don't actually really consider it as an option after school. And so that's what this event is all about, is kind of changing that. So I am going to say an initial huge thanks to my three speakers, Philip, Chris and Akeem, for coming in on a Saturday morning. And I will hand over to Chris to start the talks. So over to you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you and good morning, everybody. And it is absolutely bucketing down with rain here in Cheshire, so hopefully there isn't too much background noise, but it's really good to meet you all virtually. Just to introduce myself, and I think you've seen my bio, I've had a long career in technology. Many moons ago, I graduated from Nottingham and joined Accenture. Spent 19 years with Accenture in a variety of technology consulting roles, working across Europe and the US. I moved to industry in 2010 with AstraZeneca, clearly been in news a lot recently. Spent 8 wonderful years there, and then moved to financial services 3 years ago to Royal London, where I'm the group head of operational resilience, and within that cyber security. So quite a broad-ranging technology career. I have a real passion for developing early talent within our industry. The technology, the digital skills gap is a major challenge for us as a sector, and it's something that I and my peers have been grappling with over recent years. And actually way back in 2013, I set up AstraZeneca's first degree apprenticeship scheme. We had 8 folks in that first cohort, as we termed it. I think the total number of apprentices who've now gone through the various degree apprenticeship schemes at AstraZeneca is probably over 500. We'll talk maybe a little bit more about their scheme in a minute. And since I've moved to Royal London, I've put in place a very similar scheme. So I've worked very closely with a number of universities on building and shaping these schemes, and particularly closely with Manchester Met. And I was delighted to have the opportunity to come and talk to you about it today, because I do like to evangelise about what these schemes can do. So if we just, think about what is the apprenticeship, the degree apprenticeship pathway, and I think the first thing to say is that it is a unique type of course that combines full-time paid work with paid study. And the schemes that I've run at AZ and Royal London are very typical, I think, of the broader range of schemes out there. So, if I give you Royal London as an example, it's a 4-year scheme. All of the apprentices coming into that scheme sign up for a 4-year degree course with Manchester Met. In our case, it's a digital and technology degree course. They take a day release from us to attend that course. It's 4 years in duration. At the end of 4 years, they have, a fully fledged degree, which is no different to the degree that you would obtain if you did that course outside of the scheme and paid for it yourself. The only difference is because it's an apprenticeship, it runs over 4 years, as opposed to maybe the more traditional 3-year undergraduate approach. And of course, Royal London pays all of the fees associated with that course, and the apprentices are full-time employees of Royal London with all of the full-time employee benefits that comes with that, including, of course, salary and pension benefits. Now, we at Royal London, we really prize the experience that we can give our apprenticeships through this scheme. So as an apprentice coming in, as well as doing the Manchester Met piece, you're working with us 4 days a week. We've got a very carefully designed rotation process. And what that means is typically our apprentices will do 6-month placements in different areas of our technology organisation. We're investing incredibly heavily in our digital capabilities at the moment. And what we're very keen to do is make sure that our apprentices get really a taste of all of the different facets of the technology organisation. And we also give them the opportunity to work in finance and in procurement and other key areas of the organisation. So typically, 6 months on individual placement. When that placement comes to them, we'll move the apprentices on to the next, so that by the end of the 4 years, they've got a very rich experience of the technology group. They've got a really good understanding of the areas that excite them and that they're passionate about, and that then helps inform their long-term career choices with Royal London. At the end of 4 years, they graduate from Manchester Met, they graduate from the apprenticeship scheme, and they then move into a permanent position within one of our groups. Now, that's the scheme that we run at Royal London. It is almost identical to the scheme that I put in place at Accenture. These schemes have exploded in popularity over recent years, and we're talking a little bit about how you can find out more about these. But we've got Philip with us this morning from JP Morgan. JP Morgan run these schemes, IBM, Accenture, a whole host of government agencies. There are literally hundreds of employers running these schemes, and the popularity really has taken off. Now, I should have said, in terms of the way that we run the scheme, I think mentorship is incredibly important for apprentices. And so each of our apprentices has an academic tutor or mentor who works with them through the course of their career. They also have a mentor within Royal London whose job really is to make sure they're getting the best possible experience, and that if they run into any challenges or concerns, that we can deal with those. Promptly. So I should say, I will always wax lyrical about technology apprenticeships. That's just my particular field. But actually, these days there are apprenticeships available in a whole host of disciplines. AstraZeneca, for example, offers apprenticeships in technology, finance, supply chain within their science groups. There are a whole plethora of apprenticeships available now. So I'm very passionate about these schemes. I think it's probably worth just taking a couple of minutes talking candidly about the advantages and disadvantages of these schemes, because I think it's important that you consider these as you're considering whether to apply for these schemes. Now, in terms of the benefits, firstly, for me, it's about that real life experience. You know, coming into these schemes at 18 or 19, you're afforded the opportunity to gain experiences and just real world experience in corporate environments that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. I think it boosts your confidence. It gives you really the foundation for a long-term career, and it will really help you, you know, determine which specific fields you're interested in, you're passionate about. And, you know, if there's one thing employers value, it's experience. And these schemes give you that in spades. Of course, these schemes allow you to, put it bluntly, earn while you learn. You know, you go into one of the schemes that I've run, you know, you don't pay the university fees. There is no material university debt at the end of this. And of course, in parallel to learning, you've also been receiving a full-time wage from the employer, with all of the secondary benefits like pension enrollment and other benefits that flow. And, you know, it's really interesting. I look back at some of the early graduates from the AstraZeneca scheme. You know, they're now buying their own houses, they're sorted. You know, they're not carrying any of that debt that comes with a more classic university approach. So I think there's a wealth of positives around these schemes. There are some, you know, cons that you should consider. These schemes aren't for everyone, right? And if you think these schemes require you to take on that dual load of academic study, while at the same time getting to grips with a career in a corporate environment, you know, it is a bit of a shock to the system. And I know a number of our apprentices have found it to be. You've got to get really used to managing the dual demands of academia on that day of release, plus corporate life. And, you know, it can be a shock to system, and it's not for everybody. I think it requires discipline and it requires time management. And of course, you know, your employer and the university will work with you to help you manage this. But I think you just need to consider, you know, will you thrive in that kind of environment, or will you find it a challenge? Because it isn't for everybody. And of course, this isn't the full university experience, right? You're not typically going to be on a campus for sustained periods of time. You're not going to be able to enjoy, how can I put it, the full social life that comes with a more traditional university experience. And if you want to go to university because of social life, then the degree apprenticeship isn't going to give you that to the same degree. You know, how to find out about these schemes. You know, the whole industry in this space is maturing incredibly quickly. You know, I would say talk to your college careers office. They will have a wealth of information. There are some great websites out there. I was looking at one called Amazing Apprenticeships the other day that will show you a range of the vacancies that are being offered. There is a really good UK Gov website that again holds a whole host of advertisements. And there are other organisations who work in this space. I know we have Akeem with us this morning, and he'll talk about Multiverse later in the session. So, you know, I would get out there, Google, you would be amazed about how much information there is on these schemes. Now, I guess just to close before I hand to Philip, you know, in terms of preparing for these, you know, if you're convinced that the degree apprenticeship scheme is the right way to go, do your research carefully. There is a heavy level of competition for these positions. To give you an example, we launched a Royal London scheme very late last year. We brought in 8 apprentices and we had over 200 applications, having put, you know, those vacancies live for a month. It is incredibly competitive. The minimum educational requirement we look for is about, you know, a B and 2 Cs, but because there's a high volume of applicants, you know, think carefully, you know, just focus on pulling together a very short, punchy CV or personal value statement. You know, do the research on the company that you're applying for. You know, the folks I've seen do best in the interview process are the folks who can demonstrate an understanding of the business the employer is in and show a real passion for that organization and a real understanding of what that company does. So I wouldn't underestimate, the competition. These roles typically aren't issuing. There are a high number of applications, partly I think because people see the benefits of this scheme, relative to the more traditional, university route. So I'm conscious, I've kind of catered through there at a full pace knots. We could take questions at the end. But I think it's worth considering very carefully. I have a 19-year-old daughter who a year ago was going through many of the same decisions that you're going through or about to go through now. She and I looked at this very carefully. She decided to go the more academic route. She's at Cambridge. My son, who's 16, is, I think, more likely to take the apprenticeship route. But, think very carefully about the pros and cons. I'm a massive advocate and hopefully, as you can tell, very passionate about these schemes. And Philip, with that, I'll hand to you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Chris. So, yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Phil Page. I head up the emerging talent team for JP Morgan. So my role here essentially is all of our engagements with students kind of prior to university age, and that includes things like our pipeline programs, things like work experience and that kind of thing. And then obviously for this morning, it's very much about the apprenticeship space. And my team are responsible not just for the kind of marketing and selection process, but also for looking after the apprentices through the programs that they're with us as well and beyond. So I'm going to talk a bit about the schemes that we offer, the application process that we put our applicants through, some thoughts around how one can stand out in a really kind of positive way through that process. I can talk to you a bit about what happens after the apprenticeships as well. So kind of, what happens next to them, how they develop typically at that point. And I'll share some thoughts around kind of the different choices available to you at the moment. So in terms of the programs that we run at JP Morgan, there are two apprenticeship options that we have now available at the degree level. So the first actually is very, very similar to what Chris was just describing in the technology space. And the reason that you'll see these similarities is because the way the apprenticeship system works is that for a company to offer an apprenticeship, you choose a standard, which essentially is the syllabus for the apprenticeship. And those standards are really good because they're actually defined by employers, which makes them really relevant. It keeps them current, and employers kind of work collaboratively to create them. That they're approved by government, and then training providers, colleges, universities, private institutions can take them off the shelf, as it were, and offer them in combination with an apprenticeship. So our technology program, very, very similar. It's a 4-year program. I guess one of the things to think about, though, is that people don't always associate technology alongside banking. They think, well, if you're working in JP Morgan, surely you must be an accountant or you must be a trader. Well, JP Morgan's the 6th biggest tech firm in the world. Right? We employ more developers than Google. We spend billions, about $12 billion a year on technology alone. It's a hugely, hugely important part of what we do. So the tech apprentices, when they join, they're doing this 4-year program. They get a full honours degree at the end of it. As Chris said, it's a degree. It's a relevant degree. It's a completely normal degree. It's not like it says this is an apprenticeship degree and it's somehow lesser. Right? It's a full degree, and in that case, it comes from the University of Exeter. So they're our training provider. The difference is how you study it. So they'll do a day a week study virtually. So interestingly, actually, for them, the kind of past year in terms of their academic work hasn't looked that different because most of it would have been done virtually anyway. They haven't done their in-person visits. So on our program, they do actually physically go to the university, normally at the start of each semester for a couple of days of intensive lectures. The university really like that. They like them to feel they're part of the campus as well, which is really good, I think. Obviously, sadly, we've not been able to do that for the last year, but that will resume hopefully in the autumn of this year. They can, on the technology program, they can specialize. So there are 4 specialisms that we offer within the tech space. You can be a software engineer, so writing new systems, upgrading existing systems, etc. You can work in infrastructure, so that's working on things like our cloud solutions, elasticity, server-based solution. You can work in data analytics. So one of the fastest growing fields in technology at the moment is around data. Data is a currency. That's how you want to think about it now. Data is absolutely a currency. It's a tradable currency. We hold an awful lot of data on behalf of our clients, and if we can make that work for them, that is a sellable item, like something they can use. And then the final area is cybersecurity. JP Morgan looks after assets for our clients of around 22 trillion pounds at any one time. It's not profit, that's assets we're looking after. So if you were a hacker and you wanted to try and get in somewhere, we'd probably be on your list. So we absolutely have some very, very skilled cybersecurity teams, both defense and offensive cyber teams too. The offensive ones, by the way, are not there to hack other companies. That's illegal. They are there to actually try and hack JP Morgan. So they come to work every day, and part of their job is to try and penetrate our system. So because if they could find a gap, theoretically, so could somebody else. So the tech apprentices choose one of those specialisms. The first kind of year, 15 months is kind of consistent. And then just like doing a kind of degree, because it is a degree, you choose into your specialism, and it alters the kind of modules that you take at that point. The other program that we offer is our financial services program. So this is kind of the program people expect us to have. And this sees our apprentices working in a whole range of different roles, everything from kind of operations roles, working in all sorts of different asset classes, middle office and trader support functions, some of the client support functions are in there as well. Some of the functions protecting the banks of some of our risk functions as well will be in there too. It has some similarities to the tech program. It's 4 years long. There's a full honours degree attached to it as well. You actually get with the finance program though, you get a level 6 apprenticeship qualification, which is the equivalent of a degree, and you get an actual degree as well wrapped around from the University of Exeter. So this is where there's a difference between a degree apprenticeship and a degree level apprenticeship. They're just very, very slightly different. A degree level apprenticeship gives you a qualification which is seen to be the same as a degree, but isn't an actual degree. And that's what our finance one is. But we've then put a degree around it as well. So actually they get both at that point. Study mode is the same, day a week for study, 4 days in the office. And when they're in the office, the types of roles they do are not kind of like, I don't know, dumbed down basic roles that we would give the apprentices. They're the exact same roles that our graduates come in and do. Right? We consider our apprentices and our graduates holistically as junior talent within the firm. That's normally how they'd be referred to as a pool of junior talent. So over the course of that 4 years, they'll learn the function. They might change teams within the department whilst they're there. What we introduced last year, and some of you may have seen the press around this, is we now introduced an investment banking, a front office pathway within our apprenticeship too. And this was really interesting because our front office, our traders, these are some of the hardest roles to get into in the bank. As graduates, you'll have thousands of people applying per spot onto the graduate programs for front office. But the front office had heard about the apprentices. They'd seen some of them on the trading floor. They'd worked alongside them in the trade support, and they're like, oh, we want these guys. These guys have got absolutely the right kind of attitude that we like to see. They're keen, they're hungry. We want to see if some of them can cut it as apprentices in the front office. So what we now offer for our financial services apprentices, they do the first 15 months in one of those sort of operations support type functions. And then if they want to, they don't have to, but if they want to, they can then apply to join the front office program. They go through another selection process. If they're unsuccessful, they simply continue in the areas they were before. It's not like they leave the bank at that point. And if they're successful, then they move and continue doing the back 2 years of their apprenticeship, 2.5 years, I think it actually is, in either our markets front office or in our investment bank front office. There's obviously a salary implication to that. The roles are different. The actual academic qualifications they do are the same. So they still do the CFA level 1, the IMC level 2 qualifications in there, and they still get the same degree at the end. They do additionally have to sit the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority's exams too, because they're working in the front office space. That's required for all staff. But aside from that, it's very, very simple. We've taken on, it'll be, this year's intake is the largest we've done so far. We've got about 104 apprentices due to join in September. We're expecting that number to continue to rise. Pandemic notwithstanding, right? We are very much committed to our junior talent and remain so. And what we've seen that's really encouraging is the retention within the firm. So when they finish the program, our apprentices, they have a role. The role is available to them. It's not guaranteed. I would never say someone has a guaranteed role. What they have is there is a role available so long as they're performing well in their roles. And our conversion from apprentice to kind of permanent, if you like, at the end is 99.6%. So the vast, vast majority staying in the firm. And actually our retention for the apprentices is really high as well, far higher, in fact, than we see through other channels. If I look as well about how they're performing, I've got ex-apprentices now who are vice presidents in the firm. So my youngest, she was in technology, got promoted vice president this year. She's 22. She's 22 years old. She actually joined before we even had the degree program. And she's already a vice president at JP Morgan. She's doing phenomenally well. She's part of the relationship team with IBM for us. Really, really impressive. So we've now got, I think, 6 vice presidents in the firm. We've got another 6 who've moved into front office even before we had the front office program. there are no glass ceilings, right? And anyone who tells you they don't know what they're talking about. So lots and lots of options, lots and lots of really great progress stories. How do we select them? So we have this massive pool of people apply. About 4,000 people this year applied for the 100 and something odd spots that we had available. So it is competitive. Whether you go grad, whether you go apprentice, you are going to have to compete for your spot. Okay, it's just a fact. The only question is, when are you going to do it? Okay, is it going to be when you're kind of 18 or 19 if you do a gap year maybe, or is it going to be sort of 21, 22, having gone to university first? But you're going to have to compete, so be ready for that. How do we select them? Very quickly, they apply online. They have to do a telephone interview first of all, which is actually done by Exeter for us, which is a motivational interview. So they're testing, have you done the research? Like Chris was saying, research the company, research the program. Can you make it really clear to the person on the phone that this is what you want to do, this program, this location, this company? So you have that first. Then you come to an assessment centre, very similar to what we do with graduates. These will be group exercises, normally 2 group exercises, and we try to put in a chance as well for you to meet some of our current apprentices as part of that, because you want to be interviewing us as much as we're interviewing you as well. Got to make sure you want to be with us, that our culture and our values are in sync with your own. Top tip for group exercises: you are not there to make the other people around the table look bad. Please don't think that. I see it happen too much, mainly with graduates actually, but I see it happen too much. They come in and they think, if I make the other 5 or 6 people in my team look awful, I'll automatically pass. No, you'll almost invariably fail, because we don't want to hire people like that. Put yourself in my shoes. Why would you hire someone whose approach to winning is make everybody else lose? You wouldn't. So, we're looking for people with the right kind of attitudes. Now, you don't have to come in and be the leader in that team exercise. You might not necessarily be that big extrovert character. You might be, and if you are, that's fine. Come in and be yourself, right? If you're the deep thinker, if you're the person who likes to absorb the ideas around the table and then kind of feedback and go, what you guys have all said is great, how about we do this? Do that. Just remember, you do have to engage. You can't sit passively through the whole thing in a group exercise. Then we do an insight evening, which is like an assessed networking evening. Slightly tougher this year, but we managed to do it on Zoom. Many, many breakout rooms, but we'll back to in person hopefully later this year. That is an assessed networking. As I say, you'll have about 70 candidates, 70 managers. I'll put you in a big room and shout, go. You've got an hour and a half, talk to the managers, ask questions, answer their questions. They'll be making some notes. And then the final stage is the video interview. So a little bit like this, questions will pop up on the screen. You answer the questions. You've got a timer, watch the timer. But there's no one on the other side, right? So it's not like a two-way conversation. A bit like today, I can't see you. You're just recording answers to your screen. They're weird. They're a bit different. Lots of companies use them now. Pros and cons. Downside, you can't form that relationship with the person. You can't kind of look at, see them react to what you're saying. Are they kind of reacting like, well, what has he just said? Or are they kind of buying into what you're saying? Upside, they're very fair. Everyone gets the same questions, same amount of time, and you're normally viewed by a panel rather than by an individual. So you remove the risk of someone who's having a really bad day interviewing you in person, right? And the next person gets a real softie. You tend to get like a panel which kind of tends to even things out. So they like the video interviews. Top tip for those: think about where you are, think about your surroundings. For example, I should have moved my car cleaning kit from down the bottom of my office before I came on this morning, right? Bad form for me there. Think about, make sure everyone in the house knows you're doing it. So I've made sure my 7-year-old knows not to walk in right at the moment. And also check your technology. There is one question where you can normally have a go first of all and play it back. Do that question because you can use it to check your sound's working, that your camera's okay, all that kind of good stuff, because on the actual questions, you don't get that. The question pops up, you get maybe 30 seconds to read it, camera starts, and you've had maybe a minute, 2 minutes to answer. And at that point, you've got to, it just automatically gets sent to me, right? You don't get to see it before it goes away. Okay, final couple of thoughts from me, I guess then. Finding apprenticeships, Chris made some reference to some really great resources that are out there. General comment I'd say is that finding apprenticeships is harder than finding degree courses. You want to find out about a uni course, you go to UCAS, you go to Unifrog, job done, right? With apprenticeships, you tend to have to look a bit harder. You've got, a lot of information will be on the company's individual pages. Yes, there are some centralized sites as well, but you've got to work harder. I both dislike that on one hand, and I love it on the other hand. I dislike it because it is harder for you guys. I love it because I know that the people who found us have made the effort to do so. And that tells me something about them before we've even started. So it's a double-edged sword, I guess. My thoughts on grad programs versus apprenticeship programs, what's right for you? It's a very personal choice. I'm not going to tell you one's better than the other. I'll tell you, we've set it up so that there are no advantages or disadvantages. Financially, the apprentices, when they finish their program, land on salaries which are the same as our graduates would be at the end of their graduate program, which puts the apprentices actually a year ahead at that point. But I think there is a difference in terms of learning style. If you like to learn something in a way that they're able to apply that learning day to day, that's what an apprenticeship's all about. If you like learning in what I would call a more traditional academic type sense, that's university, okay? And university in the traditional sense, as opposed to university through the apprenticeship. So that's probably now the only difference. It used to be, before degree apprenticeships, it was, do you want a degree? Go to university. Are you ready to start work? Do an apprenticeship. And that's now gone. It's now, how do you want to study for your degree? And then the final thing I'd say is, are you ready? Okay, if you're thinking about whether you want an apprenticeship or not, are you ready? Because Chris made good reference to the fact that you've got to be able to balance your work and your study. Actually, it's a three-way balance, right? Most of us in work, we have a two-way balance, work-life, right? Life's important, don't forget that one, right? But with apprentices, they've got to do work, study, and life too. And that can be hard. Some people get it straight away and then have a little wobble 6 months later and go, oh God, it's all gone a bit kind of, a bit wrong, Phil, help. And that's fine, because we put lots of support around them. We are going to ask more of our apprentices earlier than we do of our graduates, but we are going to put lots of support around you whilst you're doing it. You've got my team, you've got buddies and mentors around you, so you're very, very well supported throughout. Okay, that's it. I think that's everything I wanted to cover. Akeem, I shall hand over to Akeem from Multiverse, and yeah, we'll look forward to your questions in a little bit.
Thanks. Let me just share screen real quick. Cool. Morning, everyone. My name's Akeem. I'm from Multiverse, so my role at Multiverse is very much to look after our outreach programs and our apprenticeship work ready programs. At Multiverse, we have a social mission to create a diverse group of future leaders by building an outstanding alternative to university. So we have a three-pillared approach to this. So one, we recruit on behalf of companies, so supporting you as young people into these jobs. Secondly, we're also training providers, so we support you in getting your qualification. And lastly, we have this mission to build this outstanding alternative to university through our own community. So ensuring that you don't miss out on that social network that you would get at university. Not to kind of regurgitate what everybody else has said, our higher and advanced apprenticeships, they last from around 15 to 18 months, whereas our degree apprenticeships are 4 years. Something that does characterize an apprenticeship is that 20% off the job training, which again works out to that 1 day off a week for you as a young person to apply yourself to your studies. Big emphasis on applied learning, so using those skills that you learn on the job and applying them to your qualification. Like Chris and Philip said, also a huge bonus is the salary. Something your peers wouldn't be getting at university, they actually have to pay for their qualification, whereas you will be actually getting a salary. Philip mentioned and Chris mentioned, young people having the opportunity to buy houses at such young ages, and that's a huge contribution down to the salary you get. We work on I think on average our apprenticeships, a level 3 and a level 4, they pay around £21,000, and that's a considerable amount of money to be earning at the age of 18 or 19. The qualification, you do get a nationally recognized apprenticeship standard. We also work with, for our degree apprenticeship, with a private university called the New Humanities College. And we also work with accreditation partners to ensure that your your apprenticeship is recognized as well internationally. So becoming members of the Associate of Project Management, for example. And a huge emphasis on having a dedicated coach throughout the entire apprenticeship program. So each apprentice is allocated a coach and they support them throughout the entire program. So like I said, we have advanced apprenticeships, higher and degree. I won't go into much on that because I think everyone's kind of gotten the grasp about the difference. With our degree apprenticeship, like Philip said, it's a degree level apprenticeship. So you do get your apprenticeship standard and you also do get a degree in that area. So why are we different at Multiverse? Like I said, we recruit, we also provide the qualification, and we also give you that social aspect. In our recruitment stage, all candidates are allocated a talent manager. Reason being, this will probably be your first time applying for a really big role, and we give you one-to-one advice, interview support, and all candidates are given for each role they go for a client one-pager. So background on that company, questions to ask on the interview, and I suppose prep, so how to conduct yourself. We have a bespoke recruitment platform which has an algorithm that smart matches you to roles we believe, the computer anyway believes, that are suitable for you, but we work with you to find the role that's perfect for you. So that's very much speaking to you, finding your passions and what you feel will be suitable for you. Example I would use is, if you're someone who's environmentally conscious, you're not going to go work at a company like BP. We really want you to be aligned with whatever you want to do in the future. It sounds quite biased to say this, but we have incredible content. We partner up with world-class leaders, like I said, the Associate of Project Management, New Humanities College. And lastly, our social network. We are building this fantastical alternative to university, and a huge part of university is that social aspect. And what we are doing at present is kind of creating this community which replicates that university experience. So everything from equivalent Freshers' Week parties to having our white hat community, which is, our multiverse community, I should say, which is equivalent to a university student union. And within that, student units have societies, and we have our own societies. So very much making sure that you're a part of a community and you're building those social networks that your peers would be getting at university. So the application process. So we have this digital profile, which consists of a digital clip, and we think that's the best way to kind of showcase your character. Whereas with a CV perhaps would limit you at the age of 18, because a CV asks for your experience and asks for a bit more about you. And that can be quite hard to detail down on paper when you're only 18. So the video profile gives you a chance to interact with an employer, illustrate who you are, your passions, and why you think you'll be best suitable for an apprenticeship. So we have 5 core competencies that we assess all our candidates with before working with them. So really important, written determination. What we want to test is, how do you react in really tough situations? So think about examples of working in a group and it was really tough to work with that one person. How did you overcome that? Interpersonal skills, how do you interact with different key stakeholders? Conscientiousness, what we want to see is someone who puts in the right techniques to ensure that they meet success. So think about, your exams. Maybe you were predicted an A and you put in a really rigorous revision plan together. That's a great example of you being really conscientious. Problem solver, very much what it says on the tin. So thinking of creative ways to solve problems at work. And most importantly, and I'm sure Philip and Chris can stress, intent. That's what we want to see from day one. We want to see a candidate who's very much interested in developing themselves and bringing their talent to a workplace. Being successful from there, that's at our telephone interview stage. In a face-to-face work, you would have come into our offices for a further exploration. And like Philip said, it's more about you getting to know us and signing up for us, and as much as us getting to know you. And what that day kind of consists of is, again, a deep dive into what an apprenticeship is, and us kind of testing, assessing you on your wants to become an apprentice. From there, we then share your profiles and send you out to interviews, and later on, you'll be able to start your apprenticeship. So at Multiverse, we have this huge mission to address the digital skills gap. So very much in tech. So our apprenticeships are around digital marketing. Our degree apprenticeship currently is around technology solution and data science, software engineering at a level 4, and project management and business operations. So really key skills that are needed for the future. Like I said, you do get an apprenticeship standard, you do get a degree, but you also will become members of the Chartered Management, of the Institute of Chartered Management. General Assembly is another accreditation partner, and you will become members of the Associate of Project Management for our project management qualification. So 6 kind of secrets to success. So ensuring that you have at least 2 references. We always go for a professional one and a character one. So maybe think about a teacher that you've worked really well with. Think about someone within the community or a friend or family who can give you that really great character reference to make you stand out. And experience, all experience is relevant experience. So I think about leadership. In a sense, we're all leaders. So if you've ever played on a sports team or you've ever led anything, try and use that as an experience to demonstrate what you can bring to a role. And think about skills and how I kind of make it really niche, and think about your superpowers. What makes you stand out as a person? Something I've seen employers like is that continued outside learning. So if you have a passion for something, we think about examples of going on to Udemy or Google Garage and perfecting those skills. And lastly, hobbies as well, bringing that character again. What employers want to see, they want to see that person that will fit right into their team. So learning a bit more about you. So thinking about your hobbies and activities that you do outside of school. At Multiverse, we work with a range of different employers. So the NHS, Google, Facebook, and we ensure that these apprentices get opportunities there. And yeah, thank you. And I think I'm going to hand over back to Lawrence.
Okay. Hello. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so now is the time for attendees to send in questions on the chat, and I will kind of send those on to the various participants. So we'll just wait for some questions to come in. I've had a couple of earlier ones. This one's to Philip. To what extent does degree subject matter these days, given how competitive getting into fund management is?
So if you're talking about applying onto graduate programs as opposed to apprenticeship schemes, if you apply to our front office graduate programs, then yes, your degree does need to be relevant. And by relevant, I'm talking economics, maths, increasingly technology type degrees as well will be in there. If you're applying to any of our other programs, whether that's technology, finance, operations, you can have any degree there. So that becomes less of a thing. And it's not true, despite urban myths to the contrary, that we have target universities and that we only hire from them. That's definitely not the case.
And then how many apprenticeships are you offering this year, Philip?
So 2021 intake is 104. 2022 intake, for which people would start applying October this year, will probably be slightly higher. Best guess, 120, 125.
Okay, thank you very much. And then, so what is the gender split of hires to apprenticeship schemes? So, I mean, again, I'll start with Chris.
Yeah.
Is there what do you find with that?
We found it's really good, actually. So across the AstraZeneca and Royal London schemes, it's generally been at the very least 50-50. And I think at Royal London last year, we were running at 60-40 female male. So, you know, and for us, it is a great way of building diversity within, you know, what maybe have been historically male dominated, you know, tech environments.
I can see Akeem and Philip both nodding with that. So, I mean, is that the same for both of you, sort of 50-50, Philip?
Slightly, again, slightly female dominant. So I think our average over the last few years is about 65% female, actually including in technology even and finance. I think apprenticeships nationally, I think I'm right in saying it is slightly higher female than male, but not massively so. It's pretty neutral.
And Akeem, would you agree with that?
Yeah, very much in the same lines. We've seen a surge in female uptake in our tech apprenticeship. So it works out just over, I think last time we looked, it was around 53% for our apprenticeships.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question is, would an apprentice employer provide assistance with finding accommodation or housing? I'm assuming that's probably a no, but Chris?
Yeah, generally, certainly my experience, generally a no, but in exceptional cases, we have provided assistance, but it's typically been quite limited.
Okay, Philip and Akeem, do you have anything to add to that?
Generally, no, but what I have seen is, especially for September starts, for one of our Google roles, we've seen the apprentices make a group together and go and rent a house together. So they've all like made a WhatsApp group beforehand during the application stage, and they've all moved in together just like you would at university.
Yeah,
okay.
so We don't provide financial support, but what we do is a lot of kind of practical logistic type support. So similar to what Akeem's suggesting, we actually proactively create that group for them with their permission to kind of share their data. And then actually our previous apprentices have actually prepared packs for each of our locations in the UK, so Bournemouth and London and Glasgow, to say, here's the sort of thing, here's good places to live, transport links, approximate costs, a little spreadsheet that helps you work out what your kind of income might be. And yeah, we tend to end up with a lot of apprentices kind of flat sharing together. I had a house of 7 apprentices together one year, and I tried very hard not to think about that house, other than to say they were definitely having the full student experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think so. Certainly, a question that I often get is, you know, what I think one of the things that students at my school worry about is the idea of missing out on the kind of social aspect of university and that kind of thing. But I mean, and the speakers I've had previously, and you've all kind of mentioned this, have all made it really clear that, you know, if you're working for a big company, you are starting with, you know, fill it with 100 people are coming in on that at the same time as you. And Akeem, you've already mentioned your kind of social platform that you've set up for all the apprentices that work with you. So actually, you are in a cohort, just like you would be at university, of a lot of people all with the same sort of kind of interest as you. So certainly the feedback I've had is that they don't, I mean, they are doing a 9-to-5 job, so that is slightly different from rolling out of bed at 11 o'clock to get to your first lecture. But they certainly have had a good social experience, and they've made very close friends from being part of that. Question for Akeem. So what was the best example you heard at interview from a candidate talking about their leadership experience?
Leadership experience. So one that comes to mind was during the pandemic, was about work experience, and it was a young person who couldn't find work experience, and they were going for one of our digital marketing qualifications, I believe at Google, and she hadn't. She basically made her own YouTube channel, and she spoke about how she had advertised it and how she had led a team of her peers to kind of surge and support this channel. So that's probably one of the best ones I've heard. So really using that initiative to create her own work experience.
Yes, so demonstrating real initiative, that kind of solving a problem, kind of basically ticking a lot of those boxes that you mentioned in their profile. What A-level subjects do you suggest for digital marketing apprenticeships? So probably Akeem, that's probably best for you.
I think with our digital marketing apprenticeships, there actually isn't any prerequisite because it starts at a level 3. So I would say any sort of A-level, because you're very much starting afresh with digital marketing. But things that would help, maybe media studies beforehand, anything within the creative or arts kind of sector. Okay,
thank you very much. Will your grades at A-level limit you when looking for apprenticeships? Chris?
Well, I think some apprenticeships, possibly, certainly some of the more, science-based apprenticeships. But if you look at the technology apprenticeships that I've been involved in setting up, we're pretty much A-level agnostic. What I'm more interested in is, talent, enthusiasm. You'll gain the technology skills on the job and through the degree course. So certainly most of the ones I've seen we're relatively agnostic.
Thank you. And Philip?
Yeah, so we do still have academic requirements. So the financial program, you have to get 3 Cs at A-level or equivalent. So BTEC, etc., all fine as well. No specific subjects, but no grade below C. So you can't come to me with ACE, for example. Tech, fractionally higher, ABB for tech, and one of the subjects there needs to be a maths or a computing subject. Some companies have withdrawn the need for academic entry onto apprenticeships altogether. Personal view on that, actually, I don't think that's the right thing to do just yet. I think keep it achievable, because at the end of the day, there is a heavy academic element to the apprenticeship, and the last thing I'd want to do is set somebody up to fail, for whom academic study doesn't come as naturally perhaps as it does to others.
And Akeem, because you'll have a wide range of different apprenticeship providers. What are they looking for in terms of A-levels?
For our level 6 for our degree apprenticeships, definitely that threshold of a C. I don't think it matters what A-levels you, but it's definitely that C. But for our level 4, level 3, it's definitely just making sure that you have your C in maths and English, or the equivalent, so functional skills at a pass.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, again, I thought the thing that I found quite interesting, in comparison to the university route, is that, you know, your top, you know, people who you consider having the most competitive being the most competitive employers, you know, where a university, you know, a most competitive university would be asking you for 3 A's or 2 A's and A star. You've got places like JP Morgan that are saying, well, we're actually 3 C's at A level is what we want as a threshold, because we're looking for different skills than the ones you're being judged on in terms of entrance to universities. So it's kind of a different message that's being sent out to people applying to apprenticeships.
It's very much about the person more so than about grades. And, you know, yes, there were some quite tough conversations with Exeter when we first kind of set up the relationship. They're like, well, no, our business course is like AAB together. And we're like, nah, 3 C's, because we want the people. So that's the most important part.
Yeah, thank you very much. Right, okay, so this is quite a hard one to quantify, I expect, but let's see how we go. So how much harder is doing an apprenticeship than a university degree? Chris, what would you say to that?
It's incredibly hard to quantify. Yeah, you know, that they are so different, you know, in terms of construct. What I would say is, and it links to another question I think lower down, in terms of dropout rates on the degree apprenticeship scheme, incredibly low. You know, if I look back at all of the years that I've been involved, I could probably count, you know, one hand the number of folks who haven't been able to handle the degree apprenticeship piece. So I think it's very difficult to compare the two.
But do you think that's partly because there is this quite robust selection process? So essentially, if you've gone through that selection process and the candidate and you have been, you know, feel that that's going to be a good fit?
I think it's a selection process, and then the support that you have once you're on board within the scheme as well. I talked about the academic tutor and the mentoring that we provide. And we really do go above and beyond to make sure that our apprentices are getting the best possible experience. That, you know, when they do hit bumps in the road, we're there to help them and navigate through. And I think all of that together means, you know, very low dropout rates on degree apprenticeship schemes, probably lower actually, I think, than traditional undergraduate routes.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I thought the dropout rate from university would probably be considerably higher than that. Akeem and Philip, would you like to add to that? Anyone?
No, I'd say same experience really. The dropout rates are very, very low from the programme. If we're going to get dropouts, it tends to be very early on. It tends to be people kind of join the programme, they kind of realise early, oh, actually maybe this isn't for me, and typically then they'll kind of drop study year or rejoin to university. Is typically the backup plan.
Akeem, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, it's pretty similar for us as well. It's really low barriers.
Next question is, at what age do you really need to be thinking about this, as you may not even know what you want to do in the future? Akeem, I'll start you off with that one.
I would more to say as soon as. I think my thoughts on that is doing an apprenticeship, whether it's a 4-year degree apprenticeship or a 15 to 18 months, you do kind of get these transferable skills to move on to anything else later on in life. So it might just be well worth just trying it out and finding your feet. Yeah.
Philip?
So I think my view on that is know what you enjoy, understand what you enjoy, and just be open and ready for things to change. Right? And don't be scared if suddenly you're going down one path and either it closes or you decide it's not the right thing to do. Just be open to change, be really open to the kind of paths that may open up in front of you, and stay focused on what you enjoy doing. Because it is hard to kind of pin down, I want to be this in 5 years. And some people have got a plan, and that's fine, but just again, be ready for that plan to change.
Thank you. And Chris?
Yeah, I'd echo that completely. And I think, you know, as Philip says, don't worry about, you know, feeling that you're locking yourself in somehow with making a particular decision or taking a particular route. You know, the reality is you have infinite flexibility in terms of your future career options. Start giving it some thought now. And yeah, don't stress or worry about locking yourself in on a particular path. You know, I know folks who've gone into tech apprenticeships who've subsequently moved across into non-tech roles and non-tech career paths. So you know, get out there, understand what opportunities there are, start building a view, and yeah, don't overly stress about it.
Yeah, I mean, so I think again it is a worry that people again, when I speak to RA level students, they often go, well, I just don't know, I don't know what I want to do. So how can I even start researching an apprenticeship because I don't know what I want to do? And you know, so what I say to them is that they should view it. Everyone has a kind of career path. So actually, you often when you do your first job, it's very rare that you start your first job and it's exactly the right job for you. You do your first job and there are things that you like about it and there are things that you don't like about it. You build up some experience and then that helps you make a better choice for your second job. And then kind of as slowly as you go through life, you are hopefully moving to experiences that you enjoy more and more. So in a way, again, by starting an apprenticeship, you're actually starting that process earlier. Whereas, I mean, I left university, so I gave myself I had a gap year too. So I had a whole 5 extra years to think about what I wanted to do. But that didn't mean that when I left university, I had any idea what I wanted to do. So in a way, I cut down on my thinking time in life because I spent 5 years at university studying a degree, which I then, you know, I haven't referred back to in my career since then. Yeah, so not worrying about getting it exactly right first time, I think is a good thing to say. How would a degree apprenticeship differ from a civil apprenticeship in the architect field? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Does anyone know the answer to that? We don't know the answer to that, I'm afraid.
No, sorry.
No, so I think it would be a matter of, you know, contacting the people offering the civil apprenticeship and asking them that question. We've answered, I think, what percentages drop out of the schemes along the way and why, I think. So very low and mostly early on, I think, is the answer to that question, just because suddenly you realise it's not the right thing for you at that time. For a design company set, do you know what kind of thing I would do on the work side of the apprenticeship? So again, that's probably to Akeem. So what kind of work do your design apprenticeships do?
So again, that would be aligned with our digital marketing, but a qualification, but be very creative. So we think of like graphic design or even UX design, things like that. And I think the prelude to that would be kind of having examples of maybe a portfolio as well.
So do you want to give can you think of an example of an apprenticeship that you currently offer at a design company and give an example of exactly what that apprentice is doing in the company?
So for a sports media agency called Daz, I think last year, and they are very much into advertising, and the young person there, they look after all their graphic designs. Yeah.
Yeah, so but the key is that they are, I mean, I think we have mentioned this already, but they're doing like a proper role within the organization. It's not that they're doing.
So they would be responsible for all the
lesser than other people. Yeah. How does it work for apprenticeship with the move to home working and that becoming a norm for a lot of companies and employers? Yeah. So I mean, do you feel that that is going to be something that changes as a result of the kind of COVID pandemic? Chris, is home working going to become more common?
Oh, I think home working is here to stay to a degree, to a level. You know, I think the model that we're going to be moving to in rural London, I think very similar to others, is a principle of, you know, home working will be an option, that we will look to have people in the office, depending on role, for 2 to 3 days a week, tops. And I do think actually that office environment interaction is helpful, you know, even on a 2-day-a-week basis, because I think particularly in the early stage of your career, you learn so much just from being, you know, engaged directly with more experienced folk around you. So we will be encouraging, in fact, our apprentices are currently in 2 days a week at the moment, but that's more for them coming together as a group. When we return to pseudo normalcy, I think we will have, 2 to 3 days a week in the office, and I think that will be very good for the apprentices.
How about you, Philip? Is it going to change for your apprentices?
Well, I mean, as I said earlier on, that from a study point of view, it didn't change at all. In fact, it was something they're very, very useful. From a work perspective, yes, it was a change. You know, we had to make sure so they had all the right tech. but now we've kind of agreed that the apprentice is very much prioritised as we come back into the office, because they can benefit the most, as Chris was saying, from being there, being with the teams, and so on. So yeah, there'll be an element of flex going forward, but we'll get them in whenever we can.
And Akeem?
Pretty similar to what Chris said, and it depends on the employer as well. So very much mixing working from home and going into the office for a couple of days a week. I think that's a general consensus we're getting. I think going ahead with program delivery in terms of going to the university, that will resume, I believe, in September. So having your 1 day going in, and where it is applicable, still having online sessions.
Okay. Are there opportunities to travel during the apprenticeship? I'll start with you again, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, the level of travel opportunity will depend on the type of the organisation and their geographic footprint. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the AstraZeneca apprentices, they travel regularly within the UK. A number have travelled to India, to Mexico, to the States, where AZ has technology centres. So real opportunity. And even within Royal London, which is a more European-centric organisation, yeah, opportunity for travel from an early age. Clearly, for the last 12 months, nobody's been travelling, but generally there are good opportunities. Yeah.
Is that true for you as well, Philip?
Yeah, very similar, right? Both on programme and also after programme. I've got a fairly healthy group of expat apprentices now scattered around the world.
Very good. And Akeem, same for you?
Yeah, it just depends on the company. I know Facebook, they do, one of our apprentices at Facebook, they've had a chance to travel to America and come back. And with BP, for their apprenticeship programs, they have a rotational period. So whether they move around the country and around different countries as well.
Okay. Apart from the academic criteria, is there any social criteria which could potentially put applicants from independent schools at a disadvantage? Chris?
Not in my case, no. I mean, yeah, frankly, we look for the best people, and you know, like Philip, we run a robust selection process, but there are no social criteria employed. You know, we simply look for the best people to bring into the organisation who are going to be the best fit.
Okay, is that the same for you, Philip?
Yeah, I mean, you whilst we will make efforts to try and make sure people from less advantaged backgrounds are definitely aware of the programs, when it comes to actually applying and selecting, no, it has to be a fair process. Anything else is positive discrimination. Yeah.
Okay. And Akeem, you're nodding, so you're agreeing with that?
Yeah, pretty much what everyone else has said.
Okay. Okay. Yes. So, this is so. When does the application process start for apprenticeships? And question, September of year 13. I mean, I think I know the answer to this question. So, but basically, the thing that makes apprenticeships a bit more complicated is that they, you know, every company runs a slightly different system. So, if you're interested in so it's about doing your research and thinking about what apprenticeships you're interested in, and then kind of following the different companies and working out what their different processes are. And I suppose, I mean, Akeem, you might want to talk a bit. The part of the genius of your organisation is that they are that you're kind of helping them link with different employers. So actually, you're kind of doing some of that work for them.
So we recruit all year round, but I suppose when we are the most busiest, because we know most companies follow the graduate scheme cycle. So they open up generally October to January, start interviewing in March, and they usually get offers around now to summer, and they start in September. So we have a really big push for starting in September or end of August.
Philip and Chris, do you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, it varies by organisation. Some go early, some go late, some follow the, you know, as Akeem said, you know, the graduate timetable. In our case, you know, we go in Royal London a little bit later. So our recruitment actually this year began in April.
Yeah, we tend to go quite early, so we open normally first week of October. Try to line up alongside when people might be starting to think about kind of UCAS applications and that kind of thing. Because in my mind, if you think about applications, you're thinking about all sorts of applications potentially.
Yeah, but I think I don't know whether anyone had have advice for the sort of number of kind of apprenticeships to apply for. So I mean, I certainly we have, we normally encourage our students to, if they're applying for apprentices, we also encourage them to put in a UCAS application, because then they've got options, as depending on how their apprenticeship applications come out. But I mean, it is quite hard work for them, because each process is really quite intense. Like, you have several interviews, you have to do your research on the organization, so it's quite a lot of work that goes into each application process. So I think they normally find it quite hard to do more than sort of 4 or 5 alongside a UCAS application. So again, that kind of comes down to them researching very carefully what they think the best places are for them. And again, I mean, Multiverse would help there, wouldn't it, Akeem? Because you do the pairing thing where they apply to join you as someone interested in an apprenticeship, and then you kind of link them with organisations that you think they'd be interested in.
There's not a particular limit in terms of how many we would smart match them to, and again, it depends on the person. The advice is obviously not to put all your eggs in one basket, so have options.
Okay, right, we're getting close. We'll have probably one more question. So law firms offering apprenticeships, there are. I know the answer is there are law firms offering apprenticeships, so they do exist. So it'd be a matter of researching that. Okay, well, the final question then, I think. So can you combine your apprenticeship with uni? I'm going to let my puppy out because he's at the door. But so can you combine apprenticeship with uni? Yeah, so I'll start with you, Chris, and if you could go down the thing, I'll just let my puppy out.
Yeah, sure. So I think, the degree apprenticeship scheme, if I've understood the question, really does is designed to give you that combination of, the corporate work experience coupled with, the university academic piece. So I think absolutely it does. Philip, maybe pass to you.
Yeah, as you say, without knowing the exact context, I mean, yes, the degree apprenticeship is that combination. I suppose the other potential is you could have gone to university first, gotten a degree, and then applied to apprenticeship. That can happen. Only thing to watch out for there is that you're not funded as an apprentice, you're not fundable as an apprentice if you already hold a qualification that is higher and in the same field as the apprenticeship you apply for. You could be different. So I have a degree in geology, I could apply for a degree apprenticeship in tech, and that would be fine. But if I found a degree apprenticeship in geology, if there was such a thing, I wouldn't be able to apply for that. I wouldn't be funded for it, I should say.
Yeah, very much what Philip and Chris have just touched on.
Yeah, and there are some apprenticeship schemes where you can do a apprenticeship scheme that is based at a university. So I know, for example, so again, I think they're called degree apprenticeship. It's quite confusing, but basically, for example, PwC, they have a degree that they have set up. So you are at university studying their degree. Whilst you're doing that degree, you're also going and doing work experience with them. And again, I don't think you have to pay for the degree. But so there are some options like that where you are basically based at university. So you are more of a student than you are at a normal apprenticeship, for a normal degree apprenticeship. So that is an option that exists out there.
It may just be how they're running their degree apprenticeship. So you can, rather than doing the kind of day a week model, you can set it up so you front load, back load, or kind of chunk up the actual academic learning into blocks. So it might be that they're doing that kind of model perhaps.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, there's just variety out there. So it is all about doing the research. Right, so I'm aware we've hit our kind of 11:10 end of this period of the time. So again, I'd just like to say a massive thanks to Akeem, Philip and Chris for coming here on a Saturday morning and giving up their time. Both Chris and Akeem will be at the virtual fair later in the day. So, I mean, they will be available to have more questions fired at them by attendees. And there will be also an apprentice from JP Morgan who is coming on in a little while. She'll also be there this afternoon. So if you've got questions about JP Morgan, there will be a representative from JP Morgan there too. So we're going to kind of wrap up now for a quick break, everyone to get a cup of tea. So the next round of talks are going to start again at 11:30. So if attendees should be back here for sort of 11:25, ready for that to start. I'm just going to double check But we've been recording this, Akeem, Philip and Chris. I'm just double checking that you're all right with that. We might, if people couldn't join or something, we'll send out the recording.
Yeah, that's fine by me. That's good.
And yeah, I mean, my main takeaway is I'm very excited about the job of being an offensive hacker. I think that sounds like a very interesting job, Philip. So thanks for kind of raising the awareness of that, that option. Okay, well, so thanks very much. And I will see attendees back here at 11:25. Have a nice day.
Thanks all.
Attendees. So I'm just, again, to say I'm very grateful to Amelia, Tash and Elizabeth for being with us here today to talk about their experience of applying for an apprenticeship and being an apprentice and giving up their time on a Saturday morning. So same as before, each of Amelia and Tash and Elizabeth will speak first, and then at the end I will get attendees to send in questions via the chat function, and then I'll kind of fire the questions at the different members of the panel. So first up, I'll hand over to Amelia. So Amelia, take it away.
Hi, my name is Amelia, and I started looking for apprenticeships whilst I was doing my A-levels at Norwich High. I left there in 2018, so I've been on my apprenticeship for 3 years now, which is crazy because it seems like yesterday I just started. And I've got 1 year left of my apprenticeship, which is an engineering degree apprenticeship at Rolls-Royce. So on my apprenticeship, I studied towards a mechanical engineering degree at Derby Uni. And then at the same time, I work in kind of engineering areas around different business areas within the company. I applied for an apprenticeship because I wanted to work on real life projects and have an impact and learn from people that already are within engineering companies. It means that I can apply the theory that I learn in uni straight away and work. So at the moment I'm on a placement where I'm using stress software, and it's stuff that I'm learning in uni that I can literally take the day after I go to uni and bring it into the workplace. And then I think another major advantage of apprenticeship is you get paid to learn. The first time in your life you're going to get paid to actually learn new things. And then I just think the work experience you get whilst doing apprenticeship is invaluable, and it's nothing that you would get from the uni experience ordinarily. During the kind of applying for apprenticeship kind of process, you'll find that the selection process is quite different to applying to universities. It's more like applying to a job. So with mine at Rolls-Royce, I had to answer some questions that they set everyone. So I took some time to kind of write answer up, because that's your first impression to them, along with submitting a CV. So you need to make sure you kind of highlight the best bits about yourself, because they're only going to look at that bit. They're not going to know who you are at that point. They're just going to read a piece of paper and judge whether they think that you suit the company or not. Then the next stage was answering some online tests. So some of them were like ethical ones, some of them were like mathematical, and it really depends what kind of apprenticeship you went for, depends what tests they were. And then after that, you can get invited to an assessment centre, which is a day of interviews, and it sounds a lot scarier than it is, because they're only there to try and kind of see your understanding and how you think, rather than actually trying to wait for you to not know the answer to a question. But one's a technical interview and one's just kind of finding out more about you. And then a group exercise with the rest of the people that are on the assessment centre. So with mine, there were about 5 other people, but obviously they might be online next year. I don't know, because of COVID. In terms of like day-to-day kind of working, I work 4 days a week and then 1 day at uni. So when I'm at work, I go on a series of placements. So at the moment, I'm on a stress placement where I look at the stress on a specific part of the engine. And then there are 3 other areas. So one's design, one's producibility, so looking at like concessions and all of kind of that area of things, and then one's on stress. But because the business has kind of gone through a restructuring, that's probably different to when other people are applying now. And then along with that, at work, I complete an MVQ. So I'm using the work that I do day to day and putting that into kind of a set criterion that works towards a level 4 qualification. Yeah. And then I'd also say one thing that, like, at the moment it's quite key is time management, because that's something that ordinarily on a uni degree you might not need as much of, because at the moment I've got an exam on Monday and then I'm using my weekends to kind of spend time revising for that. And along with work, you kind of finish work and then kind of spend time doing uni. In terms of advice for finding apprenticeships and finding one that kind of suits you the best is, I would say, apply for a couple, even though you might not definitely want to go to all of them. It's just the experience you get from applying for multiple different apprenticeships that you can take to like the one that is your most preferred choice. So the practice you get from the interviews, the online tests is all valuable experience, even though it might not be the specific company you want to work for. I'd also ask for help. Although there might not be many people around you that want to go on an apprenticeship, it's quite different to applying to uni. So you need to make sure, like with your teachers, that you raise your hand and be like, can I have some help, please? Whether that's like mock interviews, or if you have to answer a set of questions, or with your CV, it helps if you ask people to kind of look through it, because you are applying for a job at the end of the day. It's not like applying to uni where there are more places available, because apprenticeship is quite competitive. So you need to make sure that you tailor your CV and your application to the company. And then along with that, there are listings on the government website of different apprenticeships. But when I applied, I found it most useful to kind of look at different companies that you kind of see that are ones that you would possibly want to work for. So like for engineering, I just looked through a whole range of different engineering companies and looked on their specific careers websites, because that gave you more in-depth kind of knowledge of what different companies offer. And then along with that, you can also then kind of see whether the company is the sort of company you want to work for. So whether you like the way that they kind of work or the projects they kind of do. So yeah, I think that's everything to cover. I've gone through that quite quickly, so.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Just, I mean, just to kind of give a snapshot of what you're doing at Rolls-Royce. So just give us so what did you do? What was your day's work on Friday?
So Friday I started off with a team meeting with all my team, because at the moment we're all working from home. So every morning we'll have a meeting where sometimes we talk about nothing work related, but sometimes it's very serious. And then I was running some software where it's called SCA3, so it's a stress software where you put in a model that you've drawn, like CAD 3D model, and it runs a simulation on it and pulls out some results to kind of see where the maximum stress locations are. And from that, I kind of wrote some notes and then continued writing up a report for it to kind of analyze if something's going to break or not.
Yeah, so you're kind of basically working with a team of other people to improve, like problem solve on kind of specific engines for the company. Yeah, so very sort of hands-on.
It's really varied.
Yeah, very good. I think it's interesting to know, because often you wonder what people actually do in their job, and it's quite nice to know on a specific day, what were you doing? Okay, we'll hand over now to Tash. So Tash, tell us about your apprenticeship.
Hi everyone.
You okay? Yeah, that's it. Good.
I've been having some troubles with Wi-Fi, so I'm hoping that you can hear me okay now.
We can.
Great. Yeah, so I'm Tash. I went to Shrewsbury High School and I left in 2018 to go to the Dyson Institute of Engineering and Technology. So I'm a third year undergrad there on a 4-year course where we work 3 days a week and study 2 days a week. So I applied to Dyson because I had a look at a few different things I wanted to do, and I sort of thought I wanted to go to university to start with, because that just seemed to be what everyone was doing around me. But I also thought that I didn't really know what an engineer does, and I wanted to try and work that out. So I thought I would take a year out first and do something called a year in industry. I was looking at doing one through a specific coordination. It's like a company that coordinates with lots of smaller companies, because then I thought I'd have a year of experience and then I would go to uni. But actually, I saw the Dyson Institute in the news and it sounded like a really good course. So I thought, why not? I'll apply for it and see what happens. And it was actually whilst doing the selection process that that's when I decided that's what I wanted to do. So that selection process sounds like it might be fairly similar to what Amelia's just described, but there was a form to fill in talking about projects you've done and that sort of thing, and then there were some online tests followed by a phone interview and then an assessment day. And I think it was the assessment day where I realized it was what I really wanted to do, because we were on site at Dyson solving a problem in a team, and I just thought, yeah, I'd rather do this than, well, sit in a lecture hall, I guess. So yeah, that's why I ended up going for it. So on a day-to-day basis, I've said I work 3 days a week. So on those 3 days, I am based in the turbo machinery team, which is a research team. So that's a combination of doing things like some CFD, computational fluid dynamics, which is like running simulations, but also testing things in real life in rigs, but also going to different meetings, coordinating with different product teams and that sort of thing. And then on the other 2 days a week, I study. At the moment, that's all online, but normally we would have, because the degree is with Warwick University, Warwick would, the lecturers would come down to where we're based in Wiltshire, we're about 45 minutes from Bristol, and teach us there, because we have smaller lecture spaces because the class size is still about 40 people, but we normally have that in person. And then, so I'm in my 3rd year. So the first 2 years are general for everyone. Everyone's doing a mixture of electrical, mechanical, and software modules. But then in years 3 and 4, you specialize. So I chose to specialize in mechanical engineering because I'd really enjoyed the fluid dynamics modules. But you could also specialize in software, electronics, hardware, or continue with the electromech, fairly general mix of lots of modules stream. Yeah, but also because there are, say, around 40 people in each year, sometimes down to 30, it means that there is still a student community around, which is something I was worried we would lose being in a smaller place, but it turns out we don't. So we've got lots of societies for all different interests. Obviously some of them can't run at the moment, but some of them can. So there's climbing groups, or there's music groups and that sort of thing. And then I'm co-chair of the Women's Engineering Society, and that's something that I'm passionate about. So we decided to set that up. Me and a friend, we decided we wanted that to be a society that we had at Dyson, so we went for it. Yeah, and I'm really glad we did. But the Dyson Institute was so supportive in getting that running. So just in terms of general advice, when you're getting ready to apply, regardless of what you want to apply for, I would say it's important to get involved in whatever you find interesting. So for me, I was able to talk about everything in the interview process. It didn't matter how unrelated it seemed beforehand. When I was talking to, even if it was like talking to HR people and explaining how I work well in teams, talking about the volunteering that I'd done at Guides, all of a sudden was useful. So yeah, I would recommend keeping up, if you've got the time, keep up with whatever you like doing. yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to say.
Okay, no problem. And again, so do you want to just give us a snapshot of your last working day at the Dyson Institute? What did you do in the last time you were on a working day?
Yep. So yesterday I did some in-person testing in the morning. That was about 2 hours of testing, running different smaller tests for a comparison that we're currently running. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to tell you what we're comparing. And then hopped into a team meeting just to discuss some general events that have gone on throughout the week. Then had a meeting with the product team that we're working with. So for the product that we're putting that comparison into, or at least considering putting that comparison into.
That's
and then
a product. You can't tell us what the product is you're testing. Okay, that's very exciting.
I can tell you. I can tell you that it's what we call an environmental care product. So a fan.
Okay.
Essentially.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you what. Yeah, it is all very, very secret. Yeah, it's just how they like to keep it so that it's a big surprise when we launch things, because the projects that I'm often working on, because I work fairly upstream of the production line, I doubt it'll be on a project for a couple of years.
Okay.
So.
Well, that must be quite exciting.
Yeah. But then
sort of like top secret projects.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because we can only talk to it about the people that we work with. And it also makes me feel quite valued, because it's not like they've just given us something that's not relevant just for the fun of it, because then we could tell you what we were doing. It's actually something like crucial to what they're doing, and it also means that we get to see what actual engineers do. Like, I'm going through processes of applying for patents and things as part of my work, because my work matters to Dyson and they want to protect it.
Yeah, sounds really good. Very interesting. Okay, well, we'll wait for 2 years down the line when we know what you've been talking about, Tash, when it revolutionizes our life. Okay, so we'll bring in Elizabeth at this point.
Yeah, looking
okay.
forward.
So Elizabeth, do you want to come on and talk to us about JP Morgan and your experience there?
Okay. So, hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm a first-year apprentice at JP Morgan in London. I originally went to Howell's GDST school in Cardiff, so I've had to relocate from Cardiff to London, which has been a brilliant experience in itself. So when I was applying for apprenticeships, I didn't have the stereotypical apprenticeship route into that role. I don't think there is a stereotypical route into apprenticeships, because everyone has a different way in. But personally, I was looking at like a degree at university. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to go to university. I wanted to do banking at university. That was it. I was really lucky. I had an amazing careers advisor, Mrs. Wilkes, who I think is on the call. She recommended I look into apprenticeships because she thinks it would be a good role for me. Initially, I was like, that's not what I want to do. That's bricklayers, that's tradespeople, that's not me. I want to be a banker. I was very lucky. Miss Wilkes was very persistent and told me to do some further research into it. I did. I then found that there were multiple finance companies offering apprenticeships, and some of them were even offering degrees. I wanted to focus more on the investment side of finance, which is why I started looking at the apprenticeships with investment banks. Then I found the likes of JP Morgan. JP Morgan was offering a degree apprenticeship with a top Russell Group university, being Exeter University. It had absolutely everything I was looking for. I applied. Like most people, I also did a UCAS application at the same time. UCAS was a lot less stress than applying to JP Morgan, and I think everyone would agree, the stressful apprenticeship application process. With UCAS, you send in an application, you hear back in a few months whether you got in or whether you didn't. With apprenticeships, I had to do a telephone interview, then had to do an assessment centre, but that was fun in itself because I got to come to Canary Wharf, I got to go into the office, I got to see London, it was amazing. Then got to do an insight evening and then do a further video interview. A lot of stages, and I was initially very daunted because I didn't have the best technical knowledge when I first applied. Like, there were some people who I met through the assessment centre that could explain the pricing of really specific bond calculations that I'd never even heard of. But then through the different application stages, I learned that they're not after specific technical knowledge, they're after a type of person. They're after someone who's willing to put in the work and willing to learn and willing to change who they are in order to fit a role and best adapt to different situations that they're in. Which I'm lucky, I apparently fit the bill. And then I unfortunately was not offered a full offer. I was given a reserve offer, which meant that a place would become available should I get good A-level grades and should a place become available on a team. Then fast forward to COVID. As you can imagine, COVID put a massive spanner in the works. A-levels were cancelled and I had to wait on predicted grades. Luckily, all paid off in the end and I got given a full offer. So to talk more about my role. So I work in a trade support team 4 days of the week, and then 1 day a week I do distance learning with Exeter University. We're quite lucky that the team do, obviously pre-COVID, we would go down to Exeter University and do some training, and they'd also come into the office to train us. But obviously with COVID, it's all online. So I do a trade support role for the rest of my working time. One of the things that I really appreciated about the apprenticeship team at JP Morgan is you're not just given a role for the sake of a role. I work on a team alongside people who have degrees from some of the leading universities in the country. One of the guys on my team, he has a master's, and we do the exact same work every day. So I work very closely with traders, I work with clients, I work with counterparties, and I'm working on real world projects, which you wouldn't think at 18 you would be. When I first started, I thought I was going to be doing photocopying and coffee runs and that type of thing. But no, first day I started, I was given access to the trading software and explain the role and told to go do it. It was really amazing, and it was not what I expected to happen at all. So with Emerging Talent, which is the team that supports apprentices, I think Phil was talking earlier on in the event, they are the ones who run the recruitment process, and they also are responsible for all of your support during the event and during all of the time that you run Apprentice for. So you work with Emerging Talent as well as working with your team. So should you have any issues whilst possibly relocating like myself, or if you're already in London, we also offer a Bournemouth program as well. The Emerging Talent team would be the ones to support you. They're like your pastoral care at university. But there's also support networks within JP Morgan and within Exeter. That's one of the things I didn't expect. I thought it would be very much that you're on your own. Like you start a role, you start in a team, you're expected to just get on with it. Not at all. Everyone was extremely supportive. I think with apprenticeships, it's kind of difficult to understand where to start. I know that's where I struggled. And I think researching, keeping on top of that, and also I'm a fan of Excel. I think you can tell that from my job, but I created an Excel spreadsheet of all of the different apprenticeships I wanted to apply for, when they opened up, what I liked about them, pros and cons and that type of thing. So I think if you're that type of, sorry, got a question in, I'll answer that afterwards.
Yeah, we'll do questions at the end, yeah.
I think if you're that type of person, I do recommend that you end up creating a spreadsheet or a system that works for you, so you can record when the apprenticeships open, because I know I got into it about a year before they actually did, so I had to keep track of them. But yes, I recommend that way of working, and just keep on top of things, and also making sure that you are aware of the government also offers facilities to find apprenticeships. There was a massive Excel spreadsheet that they'd created that I kept track of as well. But yeah, just keeping on track of them and working out which apprenticeship you think would be best for you.
Okay, and do you want to just tell us about your day on Friday? What did you do on Friday?
Friday was it was a typical day for my job, but there is no typical day for my job. So I got in at 9 a.m. and I had to onboard a new trader. So I had to give them the scope of the trading systems we use, explain that to them, which took a bit of time because our trading systems are very complex. And then I had to speak to a new client that was being onboarded because we had to set up a specific system the way they liked it. Fortunately, can't explain who they are. It's the one thing that I love about my job is I'm working with all these companies and everything, and it's really cool. And I'm sat there going, I want to tell people, but I can't. I work with some amazing companies. And then after that, I was working on what we call BAU. So I was working on systems where we have a ticket from trading and a ticket from marketing, and we have to make sure that the two match up to make sure that both people have booked the trade correctly. Easiest way to explain my job, but it gets a lot more complex and I don't want to bore people.
Okay, well, no, thank you very much. So, so I think what I take away from all three of the speakers is this idea that as soon as you start, you're doing a really important job. you're a really important part of the kind of workplace you're in, and you're incredibly responsible. I mean, I'm quite impressed by the fact that you're the first person that someone who starts their work at JP Morgan sees is you coming to tell them how to do it, and you're in your first year of an apprenticeship. That is, I think, pretty impressive and very different from university. I mean, I sort of feel one of the things that I certainly, whilst I was at university, didn't have to take on much responsibility, and actually when you end up in the workplace, that is what the workplace is about, is kind of taking on responsibility. And so I think, apprenticeships give that to you at a very early age. And I'm always quite impressed to hear about how you're handling it and doing very well. So I'll open up the question and answer section now. So if attendees can send in questions on the chat, I will then ask them to the different panelists. So Karen Kimura just says hello to all the apprentices. Nice to see you again. Elizabeth, what degree will you get at the end of your apprenticeship?
So it's not that simple. So we get a degree, but we also get professional qualifications as well, which is brilliant. So we get a degree in applied finance from Exeter University, but we also get a level 4 from CISI and a level 6 from the CFA. So you get multiple different qualifications from registered and recognised bodies, which is a brilliant perk to apprenticeships.
Okay. So can you share, how have you managed to balance work and social life? So students often feel anxious about missing out on the uni experience of being on the kind of university campus. So how do I mean that is often something that I hear from students at Bromley High, the fact that they worry about missing out on the social aspect of university. So do you want to talk about that, Tash?
Yeah. So I would say that we don't really miss out, to be honest. Dyson has a campus feel to it anyway. So even though there aren't as many students, we're a campus in the sense that there's lots of engineers around. So I think there are still a couple of thousand people on site every day. And then from a social point of view, those people are still there for the social. So Dyson have their own societies. So there are Dyson Institute societies, which are for the students. And then there are also a few Dyson events that are a bit wider. So for example, we don't have a cycling club within the Institute because there's one for everyone to take part in. So, and we work with lots of young professionals. So when you start, you might think, oh, everyone's a bit older than you, but actually quickly realize there are lots of graduates there, lots of interns. And so between everyone, you end up with what feels like a student community. It's just that your student community goes up to people who are, say, 25 years old or maybe 30. But we still, there are still lots of people around. Okay. And there are little things like, even though we're in the countryside, at least Dyson have recently, obviously we can't use it at the moment, but they've had a building, they call it the Roundhouse, which has got like a cafe downstairs and a bar upstairs for students to go and spend time in. And there are also, Dyson's quite good at running social events, so they run buses to local, so say Bath and Bristol on the weekend, so that people can spend time in cities if that's what they'd like to do.
Thank you very much. How about you, Elizabeth? So in terms of the kind of work social life balance, how's that been for you?
It's been difficult during COVID. Normally when we started, we would have done apprentice socials, we would have gotten out there and got to meet everyone. I've met a few other apprentices, maybe 2 or 3, just through talking to them on social media. I'm quite lucky. I've got a support network already set up in London. So I've got a few friends that are students that I've got a few at Oxford, one at Cambridge and some in London. So I spend a lot of time socialising with them, very much hoping that I'll get to socialise with more people on my team after COVID.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a fact that there's been a pandemic on. It's not that there will be the opportunity once it all opens up again. How about you, Amelia?
One thing I'd say that hasn't really been covered so far, and I don't know whether it's just related to my apprenticeship, but there's about 40 of us that are on exactly the same course, but then within that there's about 500 of us that kind of started the same year. So you do have that kind of sense of community and people that you can go and ask for help. Like if you're a normal student at university, you'd ask your like course mates for help. So we've kind of still got that kind of people doing exactly the same thing as you to kind of go ask for help, and we all kind of work together as a team because we all want to do well together. which I think is quite unique because not necessarily everyone has that same ethos and like work ethic at university. And then along with that, we have like our kind of version of kind of clubs. Ours is called like the Apprentice Graduate Association. So they've kind of put apprentices and graduates kind of together and organise events throughout the year. And it's been a bit less because of COVID, but there is kind of the support there. And then in terms of like support with your job and kind of coping with everything, we have ADLs, so Apprentice Development Leaders. So they're basically our full-time like manager from when we start our apprenticeship right till the end, and we meet with us every 8 weeks to make sure we're okay in terms of like work, uni, just like dealing with the whole situation of COVID and just making sure you're okay. And they've kind of got that kind of pastoral side which you kind of get at uni, and then along with that we have access to all the things a normal student would have access to, so student support services, whether that be like well-being, like if you want counselling through uni, you can still access all of that. If you want to join like the sports teams, you can do that. You can go to the library, you can do uni socials. It really like you get the best of both of them really. So
thank you very much. Okay, so the next question is about assessment centres. So again, do you want to just summarise what you had to do at your assessment centre, and maybe, you know, in your opinion, what do you think is the key to being successful at an assessment centre, Tash?
Yep, so my assessment centre, I actually know they've changed them very slightly since I did them. But essentially we had a group problem that sort of ran throughout the day. We had lots of, we would spend say an hour at a time, and I think we did that 3 or 4 times, spending an hour on a problem, a different aspect of it, and it was groups of 5. And I think they just wanted to see how we worked well together. But then we also had a technical interview, which was 2 engineers presenting some problems to us, just to me by myself sort of thing. And also an HR, human resources interview, which was sort of, I guess, looking more at work ethic or that sort of thing. Yeah, and so, but I also, as part of that was the first time we got to see Dyson because we were on site. We had a little tour of R&D and that sort of thing at the same time. Yeah, but I would say the most important thing for that day was just to be yourself and not stress about it, because I think when you relax, when you realize that everyone just wanted to do the best they could and got talking to the other the other applicants, you realize that it was so much easier to just try and work together. I think perhaps it's because being an engineer is often about being good at working in a team, but just seeing that as a team. And actually in my group, most of us ended up on the course because I think we just realized we all wanted to work well together, and you're not against anyone. There's space for everyone. So yeah, just be yourself and try your best. And that's all you can do really.
I mean, in the kind of group task thing, like, so I mean, I would, my sort of advice would be, you know, you want to make sure you make your voice, you know, you contribute to what the group's doing, but you don't want to dominate what the group's doing. And maybe actually you want to be aware of, you know, if someone hasn't contributed, you actually might want to kind of sort of direct to them, like, you know, what do you think about this, so that they're kind of brought into the. Would you say that was a reasonable? Would you agree with that advice?
I would say, yeah, but I would say for me, I find the listening was more important than the talking.
Yeah.
Because what I got from listening to people who perhaps had understood things differently to me meant that, so there was, for example, there was one girl in my group who said something worked in a certain way, and I wasn't sure about that, but I didn't want to just stand there and say no, because that wouldn't be how people work in a team. So we had to sort of listen to how she thought it worked, and then explain why that's not how it worked. And throughout that whole discussion, there were people listening in, and you know, the assessors listening in and supporting that. And I think if one of us had just said to the other, no, you're wrong, that wouldn't have worked. And that it doesn't matter if I was right or she was right. It was about that process of establishing together and agreeing on something.
Thank you very much. I mean, Elizabeth or Amelia, do you want to add to what Tash has said? If you had a sort of different experience, or you think there's different advice that you would give?
Yes, if possible. I'm quite lucky with JP Morgan. They let us actually run the assessment centres for the new cohorts. So I was
Right.
in charge of running them this year. And one of the best things that I was looking for was, like Natasha said, people who work together in a group. But also there was one individual who she clearly knew exactly what she was talking about. And it was a female, and there have been a few issues where the men were trying to talk over her. She stood her ground and she went, no, I am right, this is correct. She ended up being correct, and because she stood her ground, the problem got solved correctly. And I've seen different group individuals before where they haven't stood their ground, they were right, and the problem ended up going wrong. So I think with assessment centres and things like that, if you know you're right, obviously working in a team is exactly what it's about, but also standing your ground when you know you're correct on issues.
Thank you very much. Amelia, do you want to add to that in any way?
The only thing I'd add is with I found with like the technical interviews and things like that, they might ask you questions that you don't know the answer to, but just have a go at it. Like with mine particularly, one of the comments that kind of stuck in my head after the interview from feedback that I got was, I'm glad you kind of explained your thought process behind that question, even though you didn't know the answer. I could still see that you just didn't go, no, can't answer it, don't want to answer it kind of thing. It's kind of how you would approach a challenge if you didn't know what the solution was initially. So just have a go, and they're not expecting you to know everything, because the whole idea is you kind of willing to learn the things rather than going already knowing anything.
I think that's very good advice. So it's about talking about the thought process and not getting the right answer. I think often when people start doing interviews, they make that mistake. They think they need to get the answer right, and actually the people who are talking to them want to know how they think. It doesn't matter necessarily if they get the answer right or wrong, and they'll support them if they are initially finding it difficult to access the problem. Okay, thanks very much. What degree are you going to get, Amelia, at the end of your studies?
So I'm getting a bachelor's in engineering for mechanical engineering, and then in brackets at the end there's aerospace.
Okay.
So
very good. So which university do you choose? Which university you study with during a degree apprenticeship, or is that chosen for you? The answer is no. So basically, when you apply for when you get taken onto an apprenticeship, they will have a link with the university. So it's not about you choose the apprenticeship, and then the apprenticeship will have a university link to them. Grade boundaries needed to get into JP Morgan. I think we mentioned that earlier today. I think they said for the kind of finance route, it was 3 C's. And for the tech route, it was 2 A's and a B or something. Is that right, Elizabeth?
I can't comment on tech because I don't know. But yes, 3 C's at A level for the financial services. And you also have to have, I believe it's a C and a C in maths and English language at GCSE.
Yeah. Okay. And I think so. I'm pretty sure at the tech side was slightly the A level requirements were slightly higher because and I think one of them had to be a maths based A level. But again, you can research that.
Can I just add something with the grades there? Because one of the misconceptions quite a lot of the time that I've heard is people think that the grades for apprenticeships are lower than what is for uni, but that's only because there's such a rigorous like assessment process that the grades don't really matter as much. You need a certain level, obviously, but they're not as focused on what grade you get and more about how you think instead.
Yeah, and I think that is an interesting point, that companies are actually beginning to go, A levels are useful, but actually the skills we're looking for are not necessarily the ones that mean that you get the top grades at A level. There might be an overlap, but actually we want to speak to people and find out what they're like, and from there we will work out. So it's not as if apprenticeships are an easy option, but they're looking for different skills in their assessment centres and things. Right, we're running out of time, so we'll do one more question. So what would you, I think, because I think what would you consider were the biggest changes that you had to adapt to going from full-time education into the world of work? Were there any shocks to the system? So we'll start with Tash.
I don't think there were too many massive shocks, to be honest, because we were quite well supported. But I think there was an element of having to, instead of managing, I guess at school, you have that study life balance, whereas all of a sudden it becomes study work life balance, as we mentioned before. But I think it's slightly easier because you're surrounded by people in the same position as you. So all of a sudden, the people I was living with were also studying, working, and wanting to maintain a social life. So I think that makes it a bit easier. I think there were also a few concerns about all of a sudden, instead of being surrounded by simply your peers, your classmates, you were surrounded by colleagues who you sort of perhaps look up to because you're probably the most junior person in the team. But I think you realize quite quickly that everyone wants you to do well, because when you do well, you contribute to the team, and it means that they can give you more responsibility, and you basically are providing better results for the company. So as soon as you realize that everyone's really keen to support you, I think it becomes a lot easier.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth, what would you add to that?
I think personally, obviously, I did things during COVID, so I didn't have the same cohort feel. I very much felt like I was by myself sometimes in the office. But I struggle with like the little things, the best way to describe it. So like not needing to ask to go to the bathroom, not needing to ask to go to lunch, that type thing. It very much was a different type of culture, which it's never the big things, and people were always really supportive, although I did get a few giggles from my manager when I asked if I could take lunch. They were very, very supportive.
Okay, thank you very much. And Amelia?
The only kind of shock I had, well, it wasn't a shock at all, but in terms of like planning when you can take your holiday, you can choose when you want to go on holiday. You don't have to like wait till the school holidays and then you can go on holiday. So I think also related to that is kind of managing your energy levels and kind of knowing when you need a break and when you need to kind of put that time in to kind of stop, because no one's going to tell you when you can take your holiday. So
Okay, very good. Well, so I mean, if the largest problem is the fact that you now have total freedom when to take your holidays, that sounds to me like a fairly sort of stress-free change from school into apprenticeship life. Okay, so again, just a massive thanks from me to Amelia, Elizabeth, and Tash for joining us today. All of them are very kindly coming back for the virtual fair in just after the lunch break. So if you have further questions for them, you can attend their sessions and ask them the questions there. The next session is starting at 1 o'clock. So again, if I could ask attendees to rejoin at about 12:50, that would be great. Just to flag up that it will be a different link to come in onto the virtual fair aspect of this afternoon. So all the attendees should know that I've sent them the information. So you will have a different link to join that meeting with. You should also, I think the attendees should have probably decided in advance on the 3 sessions to attend, because I sent the kind of brochure for the event. So you should probably know which sessions you want to attend, but obviously you can change your mind. That's absolutely fine. It's vital that you've got the most recent Zoom app downloaded. So if you're not sure about that, then I would make sure you kind of download the Zoom app again. Otherwise you won't be able to access the different breakout rooms. And yeah, that's basically everything that I think I need to say. The one thing to mention is that I know that Millie Barnshaw from Markel International won't be here this afternoon. So if you were going to go and see her session, then actually you can decide to see a different session. So I will stop this now so that everyone can go and get a bit of lunch. Thanks very much for everyone, and I will see people later. Goodbye.